Now let us go to the dealing. The dealing means the question how each of the parties to this story deals with the story today. Okay. First, the ghetto survivors. The ghetto survivors that were not underground members, ghetto inhabitants at the time. They wrote, those who survived, wrote many memoirs, gave many testimonies, and in most of them, they express a bit of shame because they pressured the young members of the underground, and especially the staff, to give up a commander who sacrificed his life for them. And it's July 1943, who knows what would happen? I refer to this in a minute. They, as some of them wrote, pressured him in order to snatch, in order to have a few more hours of life taken from the angel of death. And they felt ashamed, they still feel so. And one more important point, at that time, before the affair, they did not know that there was an underground in the ghetto. Although it was so small and crowded, the underground was very much in hiding, working clandestinely, working in hiding, and they did not know. Then, afterwards, after the effect, they were very proud. There was an underground. Later, the underground went into the forest and became a heroic partisan unit. So they are ashamed for the pressure, but also proud at a later date. Let me finalize this point, first point, the survivors, by asking, okay, what's the essence for today? For educators, for ITF, for whoever is interested. The essence of this first point is that we cannot understand what we're reading about the Holocaust unless we know very well and we fully recognize that a person wants, first of all, to live, and clings to life, and lives on the hope that there is hope, even if it's sometimes irrational. Second point, second party, the underground members, both the regular young members of the underground and the headquarters members. How did or do, only one of the headquarters is still alive, but I managed to interview some of them years before. How did and do they explain what happened and why? The underground claimed all along that there is what later was called the final solution. There is no room for hope. There is a full German plan in action. There is hope only for a respectable death. But it also knows at that very minute that outside the ghetto, there are no signs for a coming, for a pending action. And so when the Jewish Council and the Germans says 1 or 20,000, they don't know whether this is so, because signs were there usually when there were action, and now they are not. They also don't know whether the ultimatum really comes from the Germans or from the head of the Jewish Council. They did not know before that week and that night, they did not know that their commander was actually a subordinate in a communist cell. He was their commander, but there he was a subordinate in a cell that is also a subordinate to another cell outside in the city. And they did not know that the cell in the city was caught and tortured until the Germans came into the ghetto to demand a commander. And they did not know where he was hiding at the time, what his opinion was, and what does he know at all. Second point of essence, again to educators, to ITF, etc. What's the second point? Well, what's the essence that we can take out of this? Second essence is understanding that during the Holocaust, Jews mostly acted in a situation of not knowing, of not having information. You can say that the person always does not know what's ahead, what's in store for him. But this point was an exceptionally acute one during the Holocaust, because you did not know. You did not know the general plan, you did not know what the German next move would be. You hoped for this, but then came that. So a situation of not knowing was a situation in which you had to take your decisions and to act in. And this is, again, a very basic and important point. What about the ghettos? The ghetto's Jewish council head. How is he being dealt today? Again, there are memoirs, there are testimonies, there are people who knew him firsthand, there are researchers who write about the Ghetto Vilna, about other Jewish councils. His policy was to gain time so that the war would end and a large section of the Jewish population would still be alive. So he sort of plays a double game. He says 1 or 20,000, but he knows also, as much as the underground knows, that there are no signs outside for an impending German activity. He calculates or thinks very thoroughly about the point of time. It's July 1943. It is after Stalingrad. The Germans are retreating. They are killing all the Jews on the way while retreating. He's in charge not only on Vilna but on all the area, and he knows that there are hardly Jews alive around. But on the other hand, you already hear the cannons of the Red Army. The underground is for him a risk. It might be risking the ghetto's 20,000 inhabitants' existence. But on the other hand, it has communists in it, and they might give him a hand when the Red Army comes. He's afraid of what Wittenberg would say under torture. So my guess, according to testimonies, is that he's the one who gives him the poison before he leaves to the Germans. Research, memoirs, and testimonies about him today vary and express various opinions. He's both praised for taking up the job that he should not have. He was an officer in the Lithuanian army. He could have been hidden by his comrades willingly, did not have to take up all this. He was later killed by the Germans, shot. He was praised for his courage, for his behavior, for standing for the ghetto whenever he could. He was also denounced for allowing Wittenberg to be arrested by the Germans and the Lithuanians, and for not being able to change his policy on time when he saw that his policy goes bankrupt.